Three. So, hello everyone, welcome back to one of the fresh and engaging episode of Grow with Anshuman. And today we have someone special, Amanda, with us. Amanda is been highly professional to train migrant from various countries to talk natural English. And today we're gonna deep dive and understand from Amanda that how someone can be better at their Australian English. So, hey, Amanda, welcome to our session on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
All right. So, did I miss anything in your introduction? You wanted to include something here and there?
No, I think that's sort of everything. You've done it very, very well. Thank you.
All right. So this is what people, from outside used to see you as a professional trainer. But once you see yourself as as an individual, how do you define yourself?
Oh gosh, that's so difficult. What a hard question. Um, I guess I wear many hats. So yes, I'm an Australian English teacher. I'm an
Hmm.
accent trainer. I'm a corporate trainer as well. I work with companies doing corporate training with them. I have three dogs, so I guess you could say I'm a pet parent. I'm a wife. Um, I'm Australian, but I'm also just me.
Amazing. Nicely answered. So what kind of hat you enjoyed most? Is it corporate training? Is it accent training? Maybe just hanging with our friends or parents, just living around, also enjoyed the most? Or there might be some other aspect of your life which people are not known.
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah?
I think if we talk about from a professional perspective,
Mm-hmm.
the hat I wear that I love the most is probably the accent training side of things with the skilled migrants in Australia. Because when you move to a new country and you have so much that you have to deal with. You have to understand the language. Even if you've spoken English before, Australian English is very different. So understanding the language, the nuances of the language, so slang, the informal parts, culture, communication. There's a lot that you have to kind of deal with when you move to a different country. I live in India. I've had to do all of those things when I moved here. I'm learning Hindi, so I know what it's like to learn a new language and have to understand a different culture. So I think the fact that I can help people overcome those challenges and help them live a more fulfilling life in Australia, I love that the most.
Got it. Got it. Before we dive into this Australian accent, I would like to understand your own experience migrating to maybe shifting to India. How did you feel after coming to India in terms of even language perspective? Indian accent is quite neutral, wherein we
Mm,
specifically do not focus on any pronunciational thing, right? We are just focus on
yeah.
grammatical structure and other
Um,
stuff. So how do you feel about that?
True. I mean, Indian English actually, I want to push back on you saying that it's neutral, only because Indian English is a dialect of English. It's its own language. So it's not that it's neutral because it's not focused on American or British or Australian English. It's its own English.
All right.
It's its own kind of like standard of English. So it is very different. It has its own nuances. So in Australia, people always joke around that we use a lot of slang, and we do. But in India, you use a lot of Indianisms, which is like your version of slang. Things that are completely understandable here in India, but are not understood when you go to different countries. Just like when I try and use Australian slang here, people don't know what it means.
Yep.
I used Arvo with someone I know just a few days ago, and she had no idea, and it just means afternoon. And I've been here 7 years.
Okay.
So it took a lot of time to get used to the differences in English. The English that I spoke and learned growing up is very different to the English here. The Indian accent is also very different in that there are some variances in pronunciation compared to I what I use. Um, but I'm used to it now because I have that exposure. So I think when I first moved, it was really tough. As I said, I'm learning Hindi, so it's really important for me to learn the local language because I felt that it wouldn't be right of me to assume that everyone can speak English.
Correct.
So I am learning the language. I can communicate at a decent level that I don't have to rely on my husband to translate for me or communicate for me, but it took a really long time to get to this point.
Okay. So from a language perspective, let it Hindi as well for you. Once we start learning any new
Mm.
language, we understand that there is four fundamental pillars: reading, writing, all those two others. So
Mm,
did you also opt this Hindi in the same way of this learning method where you started balancing all those pillars, maybe two or three at a time, or you sort of have taken any
yeah.
other way? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I did. I started off learning the script first because again, I wanted to make sure I was doing it properly. I I knew a couple of other foreign girls living in my city or in India, and they never learnt the script. So they could read Romanization Hindi, but they couldn't read the script, which I felt was a little bit, I thought it was a bit silly actually, because nowhere outside uses Romanization characters for Hindi.
Correct.
Like street signs are, it's either in English or it's in the script. So I did start off with that. I don't write. I learned how to write. I can do it, but it's not a strength of mine. I can read. I read kids' books. I still read kids' books, and it's a great way to work on my pronunciation as well. So this is something I always tell my students. Practice reading kids' books out loud or even emails out loud, any sort of English text, because it will help you improve pronunciation too. Um, I think now I'm at a point where I can sort of understand most of what people say if I'm used to their accent. So, for example, my mother-in-law, I can understand her very well. But my father-in-law, he's a very reserved, quiet man. He doesn't talk a lot. So when he does talk, it takes me a few times to understand what he's saying because I just don't have a lot of that exposure to his accent. But yeah.
Got it. Got it. So in your case, what really worked, correct me if I'm wrong, just to read the script loudly in whatsoever languages people want to learn, right? So is it right way to put, let's the separate the accent part for now. If someone wanted to learn any new language, let it be English, Hindi, or any of the regional languages, they should more focus on speaking part
Mm.
because that would give them more exposure to train their mouth muscle, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it also improves your listening skills because words are spoken, it'll help your listening and comprehension. They do go hand in hand, and this is again where reading works very, very well too, because they're all kind of combined. Um, Speaking is very important because it's one that you can't do passively. So, for example, passive listening, you can be listening to a podcast when you're driving around, you know what I
Correct.
mean? Or you can be cooking dinner and listening to a show, but you're not actively kind of practicing that skill, but it's still giving you some improvements and some exposure to the language. But speaking doesn't have that. You have to be doing more of the thing to get better at the thing. So, in the beginning, especially if you're learning a language that has a script, like all Indian languages do, you have to learn the script first and start from the basics. English is a lot more complicated than that because English is not a phonetic language, which just means that writing does not equal pronunciation, or spelling, sorry, doesn't equal pronunciation.
Correct, correct. Now we'll come to that part. Now, since you have already, talked something a bit about pronunciation, the accent part, but a lot of wider audience from India, they had been taught that how
Mm,
to speak English, right? But the second part
yeah.
of the Indian were never even been exposed to an accent training because maybe after a long
Mm,
time once they got those exposure to talk with maybe some specific client zone sitting into America, maybe UK or maybe Australia too, then
mm,
they started feeling a difference. Boss, I can speak English, but why I can't understand their language, right? So tell me
yeah.
first the difference, clear the difference between that how accent
Mm.
make this English, simple English different, varying from country to country, and then we can talk about the other aspect of as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so there is a difference between accent and pronunciation. So,
Hmm.
pronunciation is how you say the words and the sounds of a word, and your accent is things like your stress, your rhythm, your intonation, and that part of the language. So, accent does vary region to region, and because of the differences in accent, it does make it harder for people to understand if they don't have exposure to it.
Correct.
When I speak English here to new people, I do need to use an Indian English accent because my Australian accent is very difficult for people to understand because of lack of exposure. And I know that if I want to have better communication with people, I need to adapt my way of speaking and change parts of my pronunciation for better communication, which is what I always try and tell my students as well, is that sometimes you do need to change parts of your pronunciation for better communication and to be understood.
Got it. Correct. Rightly said. So, if you'll have to state, Amanda, like two or three common mistakes, what people often think about accent training in general, maybe
Mm,
across the world. So, what are those that what people misunderstand about any learning any of the accent? Then, how is it different from English language learning?
yeah. So I think the biggest mistake I see is that one, people mistake accent and pronunciation. They think it's the same thing. But
Okay.
as I said, they're different.
Right.
So pronunciation is your sounds or the way you say words, and you can mispronounce a word, for example. With accent, it is a part of your identity. And I think the second mistake I see people make is that they feel that they have to change their accent and they have to change that to fit in. And I don't believe that's the case. Yes, you will have to improve your pronunciation for clarity and improve parts of the way that you speak. But, like, for example, if you're naturally a fast talker, and it doesn't matter your language background, if you're a fast talker, some people might not be able to understand you. So you would have to adapt that way of your speaking for better communication, regardless if it's in Hindi, Punjabi, Marathi, English, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people think that if they go to another country or a foreign country that they have to change their accent. I don't believe that. If people want to, that's great. Everyone has a different goal. And if someone's goal is to have a clearer Australian accent, that's their goal. And like, who am I to judge? Who are we to judge if that's what they want, right? If
Correct.
people just want to speak clearer to build confidence and have better communication, that's their goal. So it's all very, very different per person. And I think you shouldn't look at what other people are doing and just focus on your reasons why. So if I go back to your question about how that's different to sort of regular English learning, I think there's a similarity in that you have to find your reason why for learning the language, right? Um, and every skill is a little bit different in how you
Mm-hmm.
improve it. But as I said, speaking is one that you have to be doing more of to improve it. It's not a passive skill that you can just improve over time, as in like from the passive, I guess, the passive exposure as opposed to the active doing or the active learning.
Amazing. You just mentioned something which I really wanted to double down that we should be very clear about why actually we wanted to learn any of the specific part of the thing because majority people just wanted to learn any accent because they feel that whatever English they are telling, maybe the other person is judging them. But it might not be the case because mostly of the
Yeah,
time what happens that because we don't have more clearer pronunciation, which is again a different part, having a pronunciation and having altogether an
yeah,
accent which would be including in your personality is altogether different game, right? So I
yeah.
just wanted to understand, Amanda, from you that if someone has already decided, have set a path, all right, because I interact with maybe American people, maybe an Australian people, so I just wanted to make my
Mm,
identity so that I can connect with them in their accent. So how do you
mm,
take those individuals from having just basic English to just giving them edge so that they can communicate better in their accent as well? So what are two, three steps you can take this up? Yeah.
mm. So I just want to start this by saying that I don't work with beginners with basic English skills. So I might not be able to answer this according to the way that you're hoping I would. I
Mm-hmm.
work with people who are at an intermediate level plus because I feel that if you're a beginner, your focus should be on building the four pillars, like you talked about before you start looking at adapting the accent or changing your accent and pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something I do. I can't take someone from a beginner, but in terms of going from an intermediate English level, uh, I do one-on-one pronunciation coaching just for skilled migrants of any language background in Australia. So I don't work with people in India for that specifically. I mean, I can if they have plans to move to Australia. But I would have to wait till they get to Australia because I personalize my programs around someone's job and their everyday duties. So I
Right.
have that one-on-one coaching program. I have a 6-month pronunciation program as well, and that is open to students from any language background again. But let's say hypothetically you're in India and you want to improve your pronunciation around Australian English, that 6-month program is available for you as well. So Back to your question on, how do we kind of take them to that level? Uh, I always start off with an assessment. So regardless, like with the one-on-one program, I start off with an assessment where I listen to their speaking and I listen to the sounds that are affecting intelligibility the most. We don't look at every single sound of English. We focus on the 80-20 rule. So we look at 20% of the sounds that are causing intelligibility issues to give you 80% of the results, rather than looking at, all 46 sounds of Australian English. So then every week we work on a different sound. I give feedback on homework every single week. It's the same in my 6-month program. And we have that weekly engagement and interactions to help you work towards your goals.
Got it. So, like, starting with the assessment is what people often go through with because you'll have to actually understand where they're struggling. And I believe that 80% 20
Exactly.
rule would give them an edge. And this is also what applies in all those aspects of those, even in communication too. I have heard this thing that
Yeah.
communication goes by 80-20 because 80% of the time you'll have to listen the other person's what they're saying
Yeah.
in order to connect better, in order to actually understand why they're
Yeah.
feeling like that. And 20% you'll have to speak. All right, lovely. So I believe the professional who are just looking for Australian English, probably they can look up to your courses or maybe they can watch your videos, which will help them to just enhance their accent training as well, right?
Yes.
All right.
Exactly.
Let's
Exactly.
go to another hat what you're having. I believe you also would be enjoying that part of corporate training. I get often a lot of question being a
Mm,
corporate individual too. I often have that thing that mostly in our corporate, it's more about, I would like to know your thoughts as well, that tell us
mm,
that in when we communicate, so what matters most? What do we say or how do we say? Because what do we say is more
mm,
about that subject matter expertise. How do we, correctly put it in a very direct manner? And how do we say it maybe
mm.
include our tonality and other aspect of our language training or
Yeah.
maybe some accent training has been involved. So if you'll have to make a more importance, so how would you do that and why?
Yeah, definitely how you say it is hands down the most important thing. So, looking at something called paraverbal communication is how you say things. So, it's things like pronunciation is a really important part of it, articulation, your tonality, so your tone, the emotion in how you say things. Intonation is how your voice rises or falls at the end of a sentence. Your pace, again, what I was saying before, if you speak too fast, no matter the language, people are going to struggle to understand you. And also your pitch as well. So, sort of the pitch of your voice. The reason for that is that as humans, we crave connection. So, how we say things is going to determine how someone responds to that. You could say the same sentence different ways and have a different response every single way to how you say it. So the words you say aren't always important. I have people who come to me and say, I want to improve my vocabulary because people don't understand me. And I say, is it the vocabulary that's the issue? Or is it the way that you're saying it? Because adding more advanced vocabulary to your repertoire is not going to improve communication if you're not saying it the right way.
Correct.
And sometimes advanced vocabulary is just going to confuse people if you're using words that the average person doesn't know or use.
Exactly. All right. So if you start training to the individuals in a corporate circumstances, so how do you help them to
Mm,
just better at their professional communication? So do you more focus on
mhm,
strategic communication that you have to be more articulative in of the terms, maybe you don't have to be over explanatory, or maybe you'll have to be short enough to just
mm.
give the answer so that other people can get in very short terms, or you majorly focus on how do you project your image, maybe you work on your tonality, intonations, pronunciation too.
Yeah. So the kind of corporate training I do is I'm going to say very niche. It's very specific.
Okay.
So as you know, I'm an Australian accent trainer and I basically do the same thing here and I don't work with any corporate company. I work just with Australian companies who have set up in India. And the kind of training I do is I do voice and accent training. So I'm a voice and accent trainer here in India for Australian companies. And I also do Australian communication training. So the type of training I do is to help Indian teams working for Australian companies improve their voice, accent, pronunciation, and communication so that it helps build relationships and improve kind of customer service between that Indian team and clients, colleagues, and customers who are Australian. Yeah,
Got it. So it is more about just a complementary part of your main program, what you do as an individual basis. You also do the sort of for corporate. Got it. Got it.
I
All
do.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool, cool. So even before, I would like to ask few of those questions, which would be more aligned to the communicational part, because I would love to know your thought on
Mm,
those aspects. People often misjudge with this language training, maybe accent training, with their communication. Often, yeah,
mm,
because language is a medium to communicate. If I'm communicating to you, obviously language does matter,
yeah,
but there is something comes into picture is non-verbal communication, how your body language, being into the picture, how your
yeah.
eye contact is there, hand gesture, posture, head movement,
Mm.
everything matters. So do you also include those things in your training, or in general, how do you take this thing in your program?
Yeah, so with my one-on-one program for my clients in Australia, it's not really something we do look at too much. I do touch on it where we need to, but it's not something that's an addition because my main programs are pronunciation focused and paraverbal communication focused. Here in India, the teams I work with are mostly phone-based or chat-based. So body language does matter, but just to a certain extent. So the way that you position yourself behind a phone can come out in your voice. So again, it comes down to that paraverbal communication. So if you're sitting slouched like this and you're like using a flat face, that's going to come out in your voice, right?
Correct.
Whereas if you're sitting upright and you have open body language, you're going to have an open voice.
Correct.
So body language does matter around voice, and that's the way I teach it because it's the people I work with, it's not really, they don't really deal with in person or face to face Australian clients or customers.
Got it. Got it. All right, Amanda, thank you so much for sharing your insight about this accent training. Maybe we talked about a communicational part and other stuff. One last question from me, that how did you feel about India? How was the experience overall? It is altogether different from there since you're living from last 7 years.
Yeah,
I just wanted to know your personal
yeah.
experience about India. Yeah.
ज़्यादा था बहुत अच्छा है. I have really liked it. Sorry, I had to slip that in there. Um, It was very hard though. I have to admit, the first year was definitely the hardest. Also, I moved here 9 months before coronavirus started. So I
Okay.
moved in June 2017. No,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, 2019. I moved in June 2019. We got married in November 2019. And then the following March, India went into lockdown. So my impression of what life was going to be like as a newly married couple didn't happen because we were in lockdown. And then it was a very isolating and lonely time. Something that I wasn't prepared for was the loneliness that came from lack of knowing the language.
Hmm.
I knew it would be hard, but I had visited India 5 times before moving here, and I thought, oh, it'll be fine. But my husband's parents don't speak English. And when they would come over, I couldn't engage in conversations. And I felt so alone. And there was only so much translating my husband could do. And in the beginning, I got really upset by it because I would say I want to be included. But it wasn't until my mum came to visit after travel restrictions eased. And at that time, my Hindi was maybe at an A2 sort of level. But I was translating between my mum and my mother-in-law. My God, it was so hard. It was so hard. And after that, I stopped complaining because I just realized how hard it was. My husband was just doing his very best at that time, but I didn't realize how hard it was. So, all of these things, I didn't have any friends when I moved. I wasn't working in a typical office setup where I could make friends. So, that also added to the loneliness. But because of that loneliness, it made me sort of seek out working online to find connections and interact with people and build up my social interactions. And that led me to teach English online, which led to here where I am today. So I wouldn't say it was all bad, but yeah, it was very difficult in those first few years when I had to try and find something meaningful to do with my life. It was very tricky, very, very, very tough, actually. But now, like I've been here 7 years, I just celebrated 7 years in June. I can speak the language to a point that, I can talk to people outside. I can go from A to B in a cab. I can speak to my in-laws. I can speak to the neighbors, and, I have my business. I'm doing something meaningful. I have friends. So now I just feel like it's definitely a home for me. Australia will always be home, but I definitely feel like India is more my home now.
Lovely, lovely. And this training you have started in Corona, after sitting and being alone, you started thinking, what should I do from this to make it more
Yeah.
meaningful, or was it started before also?
Um, it was a kind of a mix of both. So I knew that I just had to do something
Mm-hmm.
because in Australia, it's very normal to start working at a young age. It's very normal to have a part-time job, and it's very normal to work, in restaurants, serving tables or waiting tables, working at McDonald's or, Hungry Jack's or Burger King, it's called here. Those things are very normal. And so I started working at 15. My parents owned a cafe. So I was working for my parents at 15. I started making my own money at 15. So when I moved to India at almost 30, I'd been working and paying my own way for half my life. And I moved here and I thought it's going to be great. I'm going to have a break from working. I've been working half my life. And then it got to a point where it just wasn't great anymore. The honeymoon period ended, and I really felt like I needed to find like have a social connection with people, but also to start being a little bit more independent financially as well. So that's why I started looking for work. I wanted to work online because I wanted to have my own hours, and then I came across some teaching platforms, and I think the meaningful part came a little bit later. In the beginning, it was more just I need to do something with my time. I want to make my own money again. And then when I started realizing how much I enjoyed doing this thing, enjoyed teaching, that's when it started to feel more meaningful. Because I've worked in customer service my whole life in different areas. So I started off in the food and beverage industry. I worked in cafes, restaurants, I worked in hotels. I did my higher education in hotel management. Then I moved into call centers, customer support. Um, I worked for an insurance company assessing claims. So all of those have a customer service kind of focus because I really enjoy helping people. And I still feel like what I do now is a form of customer service. I'm providing a service to a customer, and I
Correct.
really enjoy doing it.
Amazing. So altogether now you are just looking backward and connecting the dot, as Steve Jobs said that once we go forward, we cannot see the dot has been connected, but lately we realize that, and that's what I can also feel, the kind of enthusiasm in your speaking this project, that you are actually
Yeah,
helping individuals to do that. So one last question from my side before just ending this
sure.
conversation, that where do you see yourself maybe in after 5 years? You just wanted to be one of, maybe the word best Australian accent trainer, maybe a good podcaster, or maybe something else.
Ah,
You would find
yeah,
someone
I mean
else,
that
yeah,
would be
something else.
amazing, wouldn't it? Look, I will say though that I have started hiring teachers for my Australia business. So I do want to get to a point where I can step back a little bit from my business because I'm too in my business right now. So it is basically a full-time job for me.
Correct.
And the reason I started working was because I wanted financial freedom, right? And I feel like now I don't have time freedom anymore. And I want to get that time freedom back. I want to be able to, go on trips and go on holidays and enjoy different parts of this country and also the world. And so in 5 years' time, I see me still having my business, but having a team helping me run it, and I can have that time freedom that I really want.
Got it. Like the clarity and the thought. Thank you again, Amanda, for being the part of this conversation. I believe the
Thank you so
learner watching this
much.
video would get a lot of insight about communication, accent training, and more about that how someone can be more specifically trained over all those aspects of the life. So
Yeah.
how did you feel about this podcast before just we hop up?
Oh, it was so good. It's been a while since I've done a podcast actually, and I
Okay.
have been thinking I should do one. It's been a while, so I really loved that I got your email to connect, and yeah, it's been really great, and I'm really happy that I did it. So thank you.
All right. All right, Amanda. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you so much.